All right. So, hello and welcome to the Everyday Tarot podcast, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille Saunders, healer, intuitive tarot reader, and professional witch. And today I'm joined by my guest, Maritza Schäfer. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Camille. Yes, I would love to. And thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Maritza Schäfer. I am a witch as well. I am the founder of Bruja School and creator of the Liberation Magic Method. And I'm super excited to talk to you all about magic, spirituality, and how I use the tarot as a really powerful divination tool in the context of my spiritual work.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much. So, yeah, if you hear this episode and maybe you'd like to be a guest on the show, I still have some availability for that. So, I have a guest inquiry that'll be in the show notes. And if you want to connect further with Maritza, her website is brewhuschool.com, and we have a slash everyday tarot link just for our listeners. Again, maritza.a.schaefer on Instagram. Same on Facebook. And then your newsletter, the Liberation Letters, we have that link as well. So those will all be in the show notes if you want to learn more. But yeah, let's get into some questions. So, what decks do you like to use? Do you have a favorite? I have so many questions. Do you have separate decks for clients versus ones you use for yourself?
Mhm.
Any of that, wherever you want to start.
Yes, thank you. That's such a great question. I have a lot or a few decks, depending on compared to whom.
Yeah.
Let's see, I have the Rider Waite deck, which is what is for some people considered like the most classic. When most mainstream people think of the tarot, they think of that deck. It's the one that has imagery that has been the most popularized. And I'm very familiar with that deck. I've also used the Cosmic Tribe. I've tried to use I don't know how to pronounce this in English, but Tarot de Marsella, the Marseille tarot that was
Yeah, the French.
correct, that was restored by Jodorowsky and Camoin, who's a member of the family who originally held that. I've used an Egyptian tarot deck. I mean, I've used all kinds of decks, and what I find really fascinating about that is that while they're all basically capturing the same archetypes of human experience, the same sort of energetic imprint of divine guidance, they all have such a different flavor. And so
Yeah.
the Rider Waite tends to be very friendly because there's pictures that can be interpreted as a story. We see people by a house, and there's like flowers and a rainbow, and it's like, okay, that vibe's kind of happy. And then there's some decks that you look at them and you're like, what? I mean, it's completely abstract. And so
Yeah.
those I think are a little bit harder for most folks to work with or interpret, but also because you don't have that literal imagery to be attached to, if you will, they become really powerful in terms of having to flex your intuition in your work with them. Um, so yeah, and I had just very recently was gifted a very sweet deck called the Lunasol Tarot deck. I'm not super
Okay.
familiar with it yet because it's brand new, but it's
Yeah.
always exciting when I get a new deck in my hands, and so I'll be playing with that in the very near future. And I usually have is that true? I was gonna say I usually have separate decks for myself and for my clients, which is true, but not recently. Recently, I just
Okay.
went on a, I don't know, adventure of like I'm just gonna use this one deck for everything, and I've been using the Rider Waite deck this year for everything, more than anything as an experiment, and because I get bored of decks and I change my mind really. So no real good magical reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, interesting that you're experimenting with, yeah, doing a bit differently. How do you get to know a deck? So you said you have the Luna Soul one that's new. What do you have a process that you always do, or does it depend on the deck?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me think about it. No, I don't have a process that I always do. I mean, I think that there's for me anyway, there was a part of the becoming familiar with the tarot in general that's about understanding the different suits and the major and minor arcana and what does that mean. And that tends to be true for all decks, right? And so the um, conceptual infrastructure, if you will, of the tarot, the way I think about it is like, okay, so we have cups, and the way I read that, that represents water and emotion and your heart and the direction of the West. We have wands that are about fire and passion and energy and represent, in the Northern Hemisphere anyway, the direction of the South. We
Yeah.
have coins or pentacles that are about the earth and money and physicality and your body and health. And then east, rather swords that are associated with communication and language and thought and intellect and the direction of the east. And that is true for all decks. And some of them feel more fiery, some of them feel more
Yeah.
watery, right? Some of them feel way more grounded. And so that's really where the getting to know the deck, it's not so much about getting to know the meaning of each individual card in the same way that the major arcana, I mean, not all decks are exactly the same, obviously, but for the most part, they will have the Fool and the High Priestess and strength and
Yeah.
whatnot. And so those things, if you've been working with the tarot for a while, are pretty stable, but the way they manifest in different decks is really different depending on a bunch of things about the deck, right? Like the art, the intention of the artist. In the same way, when you think about Camille, like I'm gonna say the Ten of Pentacles, right? That's a card that's about completion and fulfillment and material achievement, and you could argue stability. And what that looks like for different people can be really, really different.
Mm.
And so if you
Yeah.
think about a deck like a different personality embodying those aspects of life, it's easier to understand why they will be the same but different, in the same way that strength looks very different in a 10-year-old boy than in a 75-year-old woman, or that
Yeah.
the fool, right, might look different at different times of your life, etc.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's like each deck has like its own spirit or soul or like something like you're saying that kind of the way that it, I don't know, shares its wisdom, right, might be different. And yeah, I led a meetup group for a while. I haven't done it super recently where we would just all come and do tarot together, like play and share decks. And I always love seeing other people's decks. It's so fun to like touch them and look at them in person. And yeah, it's just been a cool way to get to see. There's so many decks out there, right? Like you said, right? We all have our own personal collections, and especially if you do it for work, you get even more. But there's always decks that I've never seen or heard about before that I
What's
love
your favorite
to.
deck?
I think like you, it definitely changes. I have all of mine over there. One of my favorites is the Goddess of Love tarot deck by Gabriella
Oh,
Herstek.
yes.
I love that one. Very Venusian, and kind of like sex magic-esque, and very self-love too, which I really
Mhm.
enjoy. I think I just got a new one. I got this Seasons of the Witch, Samhain, Oracle one, which I got a reading done recently, and they used this, and I was like, ooh, now I want it. So it's Oracle, of course, so different structure than tarot, but I love the process of getting to know a new deck. Kind of like you, right? I'll bring it around with me. That's the one I'll usually pull from. Um, but I've probably tripled my amount of decks this year doing the podcast and just yeah, going to more witchy stores or finding I like buying decks when I travel too. Usually I will go into it being like, I'm gonna find a deck. I don't know what it's gonna be or where I'm gonna find it or what style or oracle or tarot, but it's like a fun souvenir to bring home with me as like a piece of that experience. So
Totally. That's super
yeah.
cool. The other thing too, I don't know about your own personal practice, but I pull a card daily for myself. And
Okay. Yeah, I was
so
gonna ask about that. Okay, so a
yeah, and
daily
so
card,
when
yeah.
I'm trying to get to know a new deck, I'll just replace the deck that I'm using for the daily pull with that because if nothing else, I'll get 30 cards in a month that I'm looking
Yeah.
at and becoming familiarized with, from the new deck. And so I think that just that's really another way of just saying getting to use it is how you get to
Yeah.
know it. Just like dive right in and start pulling cards and see how it feels for you.
Yeah. 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 I like that methodology too, like you're saying, of sort of like, yeah, just bringing it into your daily practice. I would say I was probably more formal about it when I first was getting decks, or maybe I got like one a year or something. So I felt like I had a long time to like, whatever, do the things they say, put it under your pillow or carry it around in your purse or lay out every card and look at it. And I would say my process now, yeah, is a lot more informal. It's like, ooh, this is fun. And usually I pull some cards, like, more daily stuff. Usually I incorporate it into my podcast often of like, okay, great, I'll pull from this today to get to know it. But yeah, this recent deck I got, I definitely have not looked at all the cards, and that's like kind of fun to see what will come out.
Exciting. But
Yeah,
you're touching on something super interesting that I think is very important. There's a ritual aspect of the relationship with the cards that is really sacred and that
yeah,
really defines my relationship with the cards. And so what you're describing in terms of putting it under your pillow or like laying it all out and making some sort of mandala from all the cards and really getting to know it in this way, I find that a very ceremonial way of doing it. And I
yeah,
love that. And it's really important. And I think that, and that's just more for each particular deck. What I mean by that is that as opposed to the tarot in general, I know a lot of people that when they're first dabbling, they're pulling some cards and playing with them, like you said, but they're also studying it, right? They're like reading
yeah,
books about, they look up like Seven of Swords, what does that mean? Or Four of Cups or whatever. And I think there's a lot of value to that. Of course, you want to learn from other people's interpretations and what the wisdom has uh, transpired as over the centuries really, and then you need to make it your own. And
yeah,
so I think that for somebody like you, Camille, who's obviously very well versed in the tarot and has been doing this for a minute, you're not gonna probably get a new deck and start re-studying or reviewing what the meaning of each card, but it's rather more about the ceremony and ritual for connecting your energy to the
yeah,
energy of that deck. And sort of like what you were mentioning earlier, the energetic imprint of that deck and how does that align with yours?
yeah, yeah. I think that's a great way to describe it. Like you're saying, I definitely, yeah, in the beginning was like, let me read a book about how to learn about tarot. Or I felt like there were a lot of people that would just say, like, you need to memorize it. And I was always sort of like, like, that doesn't feel right to me. And I think yeah, tried like, let me read a book that tells me to look at a card a day, or let me look on an app, or it was a lot of like, let me seek information, yeah, outside of myself. Which I think, yeah, we all go through a bit of that process of like, okay, that's our norm. That's often what we're taught in society. And then yeah, for me now, it's a lot more of like, oh no, like the deck knows, I know, right? The energetics, they know, and it just has to kind of like show it to me. That's how it feels now. Like you said, of sort of getting to, yeah, like align with the energy of the deck is a lot more of and I think, yeah, with things like Oracle, where, right, I don't really know the structure going into it, I do find the process of like uncovering that to be very fun. Or to be like, oh, it's a little surprise. Like, how many cards even are there? I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think in the beginning, I had a much more like academic approach to it, perhaps, of like research and doing the tarot journaling every time I did a spread. And yeah, now it's very like, I write down stuff if I want to, or I'll share things, but especially with doing my podcasts, I definitely am doing tarot every day. So that's also been like a fun, yeah, a fun way to practice in that way. And I know for me on the podcast, yeah, I pretty much always will pull a card at the end and I will often like not know what deck is gonna like who wants to who wants to show up on this episode.
Mhm.
And I'll kind of roll my chair over to my bookshelf and pick the one that feels good or aligned with whatever I'm talking about. But yeah, that's a fun process too of just kind of I love sort of like the live in the moment present aspect of it to
Mhm.
see what comes out.
Camille, when you say since the podcast you're doing tarot every day, what does that look like for you? Are you doing readings for people every day? Are you pulling cards for yourself? Like, how are you in the practice?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I pull cards for myself.
Uh-huh.
Definitely not every day, although sometimes when I get a new deck, I will like I have some in front of me right now in my little I have like a 3 card holder in front of me. So usually I am kind of getting to know a new deck. On the podcast, it depends on the season. I haven't done a lot of tarot readings for other folks. I like to do a lot of collective tarot readings. That's more for like the collective. I've done that and I enjoy doing that. Mostly I've done tarot readings for friends and family when I was getting into tarot. It was a very interesting experience because I pretty much only read like I did tarot for myself and I was like I didn't really talk to anyone about it. I just like did it. I found a deck that spoke to me and it like kept calling me to a shop. And I didn't really know what I needed to buy there. But I found they had a single tarot deck there that I got. Um, and yeah, just from that process, I got to know it and do tarot. But it wasn't until I would post spreads I would do on Instagram stories. And I honestly was like, how do people even know I do tarot? But it was people that followed me that were my friends, like in real life, but or family on Instagram that saw me posting spreads, usually just like whatever cards I pulled.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't even say like what the spread was or anything. It was just like pictures of cards. And that's when people started asking, like, oh, would you want to do a tarot reading for me? Or again, kind of like friends or things like that or family. And that's when I felt like that really catapulted my understanding of the tarot was when I had to start thinking about it for other people and tuning into like their energy and trying not to like bring too much of my own kind of like this is what I see into it, but laying out the cards, kind of like going through what I think the deck is saying, and then getting feedback from whoever was getting the reading about what their experience was. And that was very cool. And again, sort of, I had people in my life that I was like, oh, I didn't know you would be interested in this, or like that you would, whatever, believe in this, or like my dad asking me for a tarot reading, where I was like, oh, okay, not who I expected. Um, and then since then, I've done it in more of like, I had a booth at our local like Pride event this year and had my whole kind of like podcast advertising set up and was just pulling cards for anyone that was coming by for free and just kind of like, and that was very fun because of course I was like, I don't know these people at all. And that was fun too, to just get to see. To me, it always is like, oh, the tarot is like so real. Like, I don't have to know anything about the person, but that they hear the message that like is for them. That's how
Mhm.
I feel. But yeah, I think that answered your question. I don't remember what it was now, but yeah, that's been kind of my experience. And then yeah, I guess yeah, I do. It depends on the season of like what I'm doing on the podcast for. I've done like seasons that are all tarot spreads, so I'm like doing someone else's spread every
Mhm.
time. And then right now I'm doing like color magic and tarot, so I'm pulling like, oh, I'm going to talk about the color pink. I'm gonna go through a bunch of my decks and pull all the cards that are pink and see like what comes out of that. Like Are there things in common? Do they have to do with kind of the energy of the color pink? So yeah, it just kind of depends. And then usually I pull a card at the end. So
Mm,
usually there is an aspect of like card of the day on the podcast too. But yeah, a wide variety.
that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious, how would you describe your style of reading tarot?
Yeah. You know, when I do a reading for a client, I always begin by explaining to them that I work with the tarot as a divination tool. And what I mean by that is that it's a tool to connect with the divine or divine aspects of yourself, whatever understanding you have of that, that is really something that's inherent to all people, that may or may not have a name, kind of the mystery. God, the universe, whatever you want, that's always present. But because of human nature and because especially of the 21st century, we rarely slow down enough to connect with that, right? And so there's a lot of wisdom available to us that we're not fully paying attention to on our daily lives. And so the tarot is a way to slow down and get an energetic snapshot of what's going on for you today, a lot of which you may not be consciously aware of, like I said, but that's again what's real at the moment. And then if you like it, keep going, and if you don't, do something different, right? And so I try to also clarify to people that divination as in connecting with the divine, not as in divining the future. What happens is that very often the tarot brings something up, and reading the spread for the person, or we're having a conversation, and then a few weeks or a few months later they'll come back to me and be like, oh my god, how did you know? And I'm like, I didn't know anything. What happened was I described to you again the energetic snapshot of your life at that moment. And if that kept going, that was going to be the obvious outcome. And that kept going and you got the obvious outcome. Like it's not anything more mysterious than that, right? And so I always want to make it super clear to people that it's a tool for self-reflection, self-reflection, and it's meant to be quite empowering, as opposed to, oh no, the card said X will happen, and I don't like X. What am I going to do? It's like, no, the card's saying like right now, X is looking like a possibility, and then you have agency, right? You get to choose
Yeah.
how you're going to respond to that. And so, yeah, it's really, I think of the tarot more than anything as a tool for reconnection of a person to their own soul, so that they can get guidance in the real life. So it can be used, and I do use it a lot for, spiritual growth and personal development, but also for like really specific, like real, like, am I going to take that job? Yes or no? Is this person good for me? Yes or no? Like more very tangible things as well. So I really love about it that it's quite multifaceted in that way. If you want to use it like we were talking about earlier, Camille, in this very ceremonial way, so that you're, in a sacred space and basically communing with your own spirit, totally a fabulous tool for that. And if you want some real guidance on like, hey, I have this business opportunity, I'm not sure what do the cards say, also very practical. I find that the tarot can give me really practical advice as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And yeah, I feel like I've never heard someone talk about like the divine and then divination. And somehow I'm like, I've never even thought of the fact that like, yeah, divining it what has to do with the divine and not just like you're saying, kind of this like looking towards the future. I feel like pop culture has done tarot a disservice or like tarot readers a disservice by sort of focusing on the like this is the future. It's set in stone. You have to be terrified of it, right? I feel I did a whole season on tarot and pop culture, and I was like, oh, like most of the pop culture depictions of tarot, I don't love, and I don't really feel like that's how I do tarot. I feel like there's a lot of like fear mongering, right? You pull the death card, that means you're gonna die, like, and it's like, no, it's not really how I would normally view it. But
No. But
yeah.
also you are gonna die. Ha.
Yeah, we're all gonna die. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. they're right. There is a truth in that, but it doesn't have to be so scary.
Totally. And the
Um,
same is true of so many spiritual practices and of witches specifically as well, and I mean, that's a whole nother story, and I have many opinions about that. But yeah, it's quite misguided, I think.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. You talked about, I was looking at some of the stuff on your website about like kind of magic and mindset work. Like, do you feel like tarot is magic, first of all? And then I'm like, what is this, yeah, connection for you or difference between magic and mindset work?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I think that the tarot can totally be very magical. My definition of magic is basically technology of transformation, right? Is the
Mm,
craft of shifting reality. And so
yeah.
in that process, the tarot can be incredibly useful because again, it's illuminating, it's spotlighting things that are influencing your current reality. And if you weren't aware of them, or if you weren't really understanding them in the context of your life right now, you weren't going to be able to incorporate that in your thinking and in your behavior, right? And so it's definitely super useful as one tool for again creating your reality or making a change in your life, right? I think that mindset, the way I understand mindset, is really how you think about your circumstance or how you think about anything, right? Like we hear people talking about like the money mindset or like mindsets in wellness and in all aspects of our lives. And I think that's critical for how we function and how we create our own lives. And from my cosmology, if you will, it's only a part of the story because there's the mindset, but then there's the body, then there's the heart and the spirit as well. And so for me personally, the way I think mindset and magic being different is that um, mindset is does not require magic.
Mm,
It's about how you think about things, and magic will probably require some input from your mindset, but that's not the only ingredient, right? Like my mindset, the way I understand it, is about the thoughts that you think about your problem or your situation or your life. Magic incorporates, yes, that, and also a bunch of other stuff, including a spiritual aspect and an aspect of relationships that are not necessarily embodied or concrete or physically manifest, right? I'm talking about the relationship with yourself and with nature and with the divine, like I was talking about, the tarot being a really good tool for that.
yeah.
And the different levels of your consciousness, different aspects of your own self. So I think that um, magic is in a way broader, more broadly encompassing of things than mindset work can be. And mindset work is critical and incredibly powerful and useful. But for me, at the edge of mindset is where magic comes in. Like if you've done all this mindset work and whatever you're working on is not quite shifting, okay, so maybe it's time to throw some magic in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. That, yeah, there's this sort of both and um,
Mhm.
as I would maybe talk about in like therapy world where it's like, yeah, it can be both. You can have all of this and that, yeah, perhaps only doing one or the other is also not going to like serve you very well.
Right.
If you only do magic, perhaps, and then don't do the mindset work, maybe there's going to be something that's lacking there. Or just, yeah.
Hang
There
on,
was
I want
some,
to say something about that because
okay.
it's really interesting. I don't think you
Yeah.
can do magic without the mindset work from
Mm,
my
okay.
position, because the way I
Yeah.
do magic is that I'm working with all of the elements. Like I was talking about earlier, the tarot has these four suits and they each represent an aspect of ourselves, right? And so again, there's our mind, there's our spirit, there's our heart, there's our body. And so depending on what I'm trying to do with the magic, some magical work is going to be way more focused on the mindset or way more focused on my body, but they're all going to have some presence of an aspect of ourselves, even if it's in very different proportions. So
Yeah.
the way that I'm thinking, the way I think about it is magic will require some mindset work at some point, but mindset work can happen without the magic because it's a subset of the magic, if you will. And again,
Yeah.
there's so many ways to think about this, and there's beautiful, wise teachers that look at this in a lot of different ways, but this is just my perspective on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that I got this image of like, yeah, mindset is like part of the pie. It's like a slice of the pie, but there's all these other components. Yeah, I'd be curious for you to share more, you sort of said like from your own, spiritual practice, or there was also something you said earlier, like about language that made me think about like, oh, do you I guess like I assume you speak Spanish, but that's perhaps an incorrect assumption. But
I do.
um, yeah, I was curious about like, do you do readings in like just how you think about just because language changes the mind and how we think about things differently, perhaps in English versus Spanish. So let me think about what my actual question is. But yeah, I guess maybe share some a bit about your magical practice or your kind of like lineage if you care to do so. And then maybe I'll ask my more language specific questions once we hear some about that. Because I know some, but I want you to share it too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I teach is the liberation magic method. And so it's composed of three different elements. It's about learning about the three different levels of your consciousness, right? So your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and your superconscious or divine self, and how they work together, or sometimes they don't. And that's why you might be running into some trouble. I talked about three magical axioms that are basically inherent truths of reality that dictate how things are and evolve. And when you're familiar with them, your magic becomes a lot more powerful. So the axioms are everything is born, grows, dies, and is reborn. Can talk a lot about why that's relevant for magic. The second axiom is that paradox is life's organizing principle. So it's really about getting people comfortable with this idea, Camille, like you were saying, of the both and. That's a feature, not a bug of life, right? It's
Yeah.
literally the organizing principle. And then this idea that speaking truth is the path of liberation. And so that's a really profound concept that has a lot of extremely practical applications in the sense of what is my own truth, what is my heart's true desire, and how can I help that happen in the world, and how can I help those around me do that for themselves, and so that they help me do that, and what does that mean in terms of my place in the community. And then I also work with the elemental framework, which is, the elements that are represented by the tarot: the water, fire, earth, air, aspects of ourselves, times of day, seasons of the year. It's, this long list of associations with those things. And so what I tell my students is that magic is experiential. It's very not heady. So when you're hearing me be like blah blah blah, this, that, the other thing, it's quite overwhelming. But when you put all those labels on the table, you realize that what you're really naming are these incredibly powerful ingredients of understanding, so that you can work with them and make magic, right? Work magic, like cast a spell and make a drastic change in your life. And really, a lot of folks come to me because they want help, right, with something specific. They've been in therapy for a long time, but they're still single. They can't find a partner, or they've done all the mindset work, like you're saying, but they're still not able to make more money or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, we can totally make that happen. That's like really important. But also, this is about spiritual connection, right? And when you have that spiritual connection, it's not just me sitting at my beautiful altar by myself, although that is a part of it for me, but it's about the fact that we're all spiritual beings. And if I'm spiritually connected, I cannot be disconnected from you and everybody. And that has all kinds of implications. Like, that's really hard. I don't want to be connected to the neighbor across the street who's a total jerk. And like, think of, that's so I think about it as a deeply personal practice, but that's foundational for collective liberation and vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm like, what was the question? I just went on a rampage.
I think I just asked about your personal like practice and
So
how,
that's my
yeah,
personal practice. So what
yeah,
that looks like in practice is that I let's see. I work with the tarot a lot, as you might imagine. That's why I'm here today. So that's a huge part of my practice. I work with students in my Liberation Magic program. I do a lot of meditation and energy work. I cast spells for myself, on rare occasion for others. I would rather not do that, because I like people to own their own agency, but sometimes it's appropriate, so I will do that. And most importantly, I don't think of this as a thing out there. It's not like,
Mm,
I think of my work as outside of myself. I think, uh, even as my relationships as outside of myself, but I think about my spiritual practice as the foundational, super integral part of my manifestation, right? My incarnation, my expression as a human being that's really inseparable, inseparable from what I'm here to be, experience, and do. So
yeah.
it's really hard to describe because of that. It's kind of like, you wake up and you're witching,
Yeah.
not by virtue of
Yeah.
doing anything other than being how you be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like you were always that? Were you always waking up and witching? Yeah.
Totally. I mean, and
Yeah.
that also means, I mean, unrelated to that, and because I also wake up and I'm human, so many days just suck. And like,
Yeah.
there's no magic in the world that's gonna have you
Yeah.
avoid the human experience. And so that's something too that I'm really passionate about, because I don't know, my analysis is that sometimes people are looking for like a spiritual out from human suffering, which is
Yeah.
completely understandable, and none of us want to be having a shitty time, like that's just obvious. But also I believe that difficulty is inherent to the human experience and it's unavoidable, and so it's not about not having any hardship in your life, but rather about what are you going to do with it? Can you transform it? Can you accept it? Can you integrate it? Can you use it as a lesson for others? Can you use it as like something that will help you grow rather than, victimizing yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it was making me think about again some of like the when you talk about advocacy as being important too, because in our material world,
Mhm.
advocacy is also some of the things that we can do and change. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of pull that out as like you're saying, right? We can't necessarily just be in magical world or think that that's separate from kind of what we might need to be doing in, like I would say, the material world to make change in the ways that we would like to see, so that perhaps the world would not feel as, I don't know, tumultuous. Like you said, I don't think that that's ever going to mean that we don't have stress or we don't have challenge. Um, but yeah, I feel like I've seen, like you said, people kind of turn to magic and then sort of perhaps ignore things that they could be doing in real life is how it feels. But like in going out and doing things, I don't know, voting, protesting, like being involved in politics, just other things too that become a part of that.
Correct. And I think that's totally people's prerogative. And if that's, what they choose to do, that's okay. And also, I believe for me that just by sheer virtue of getting a ticket to ride this rock we call Earth, it comes with a set of responsibilities, right? And so I think that, because I don't just quote believe, but I have the experience of all of us being one and being interconnected. If you're getting screwed over, sooner or later, I'm going to get screwed over. And
Mm,
my pain,
yeah.
sooner or later, it's going to hurt you. So even if it's not from an altruistic, like this is a good way to be as a human perspective, it's in your own best interest to realize that we're all bound together, right? In our destinies in a very real way. And so I think that a lot of the magic for me is getting real again, speaking truth, being the path of liberation about why some things are the way they are, who's in charge, who's benefiting from them, what is my part in them, because we all have a part in them, and not hiding out and hoping that it won't impact us, because it might not in our lifetimes, but it will it might impact your grandchildren. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's everybody's responsibility. And so I'm also quite passionate about that. I'm really worried is not the right word. Aware, I guess. I don't know, cognizant of um using spirituality as a way to sort of bypass political responsibility. I have opinions about that. I'm no one to judge, but I have preferences, you know what I mean? And I do feel strongly about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like we're coming back to this point of like the both and. It's like you need advocacy in addition to your magic, and that, yeah, maybe we can't, just do one or the other, or that they're going to affect different things, but yeah, that we can sort of spiritually bypass sometimes the choices we could be making or impacting other people's lives. And like you said, yeah, thinking about I it just makes me think of like ancestors or like lineage where um where sometimes we think about the past of like generational trauma.
Mhm.
And then but also thinking about the future and kind of like, oh yeah, what's over here? What kind of legacy am I leaving? And
What
that
kind
like
of
you said.
ancestor do you want to be?
Yeah, yeah, which again, I'm like, oh, in this time of year, and this sort of like Samhain grief, dark, cold, at least where I live in the Northern Hemisphere, part of the year, I feel like that comes up a lot for people.
Yeah.
And I feel like yeah, it's important to think of, yeah, the sort of forward and backwards of lineage, um, as well. Yeah, and that. Yeah, I mean, part of why I like doing collective tarot readings is because I feel like there's something that everyone can get out of like the
Hmm.
same reading. And again, maybe they don't get the same thing out of it, but
Yeah.
I think it's very fun to see like how that can, um, yeah, the individual experience of connecting with, yeah, the collective tarot readings, um, in that way. Yeah.
Should we do a reading?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you have anything that we want to ask or anything in mind? I do not, so I
I
could try
was
to come
hoping
up
you
with
would,
something,
because
but
I came prepared to do a reading or pull a card, but I didn't come with a question. But if you
okay.
come up with
Well,
something.
yeah, let's see. Trying to think
Camille, do
about
we want
what.
to do something like a brief reading or pull a card for the collective, or what are your thoughts? Did you want to ask something for you personally, or how would you want to handle
Hmm.
this?
Hmm. Um, I think something for the collective would be good. Yeah, I think we could each pull a card. I'm trying to think. I feel like we need a slight direction or topic.
Camille, when you're thinking of the collective, are you thinking about the folks that are listening to this, or who comes to mind when you think of the
Hmm.
collective?
I think like all of humanity when I
Humanity,
think of the
complete life.
collective.
Fantastic. All right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think of course, right, there's sort of the literal realm of who's going to hear this. Um, but yeah, I feel like when I'm doing a collective tarot reading, I'm tapping into the full human collective.
All right.
Um,
So, like we were saying earlier, this is an energetic snapshot of where humanity is at this very moment.
yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I pulled the sun.
Oh, okay.
I know it's great. So from the Rider Waite, gorgeous little baby
Yes.
riding a
I know. I always love the happy
big
baby.
fat sun shining on top. I had that hot reaction because for me and those around me, it's not feeling super sunny. It's quite
Yeah.
warm, fall, almost winter. It's also not feeling super sunny energetically. Things are rough. This year has been very tough for many people. It's been filled with fear and contentious politics and war and economic worry and all kinds of stuff that's just not pleasant, which is basically the opposite of the sun. And so I'm choosing to believe that the way this card is showing up today is that the opportunity for radiance, for vitality, for optimism, for energy, for prosperity is super present for humanity right now. And we just need to show up and claim it.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Yeah, sort of like the hopefulness that is possible, even when it feels like things are hard, or we kind of look around and we're like, ooh, what is this? What are we doing here? Okay, so I'm pulling from the Seasons of the Witch
Ooh,
Oracle
great.
here for Samhain. So my latest deck, and I pulled. So this is Oracle, so of course we'll have to talk a bit about it. But I pulled
Harvest.
Third Harvest.
Okay.
Um, and so there's some words associated with it, gathering, abundance, and preparation. And then there's
Ooh.
a poem that when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, that's real. Daughters of the woods, feel thy sacred swell with suppleness. Taste the gathering of honey's milk, filling your emptiness. And I feel like there's something here even about like your sun card. So I'll read a little bit of what it says in the book because I'm still getting to know these cards. It
Great.
says Samhain served as a practical holiday that told our ancestors to prepare for the coming of winter. The third harvest was a time to gather up the remaining crops to prepare and store them to have enough food to last the harsh conditions. The last of the wheat would be ground to flour, the remains of fruit and veggies would be pickled and canned, and meats salted. Everything with a shelf life was stored in the underground cellars and packed with ice. Though winters may be harsh and gathering up your food is hard work, there is a feeling of abundance and pride in getting prepared. Imagine looking at your food stores and seeing a physical representation of your work. Imagine seeing the abundant rewards of planting your seeds and nourishing them as they grow. We are lucky that we no longer have to face the conditions in the modern world. Refrigerators and grocery stores can make it easier for us to have food all year long. Perhaps that is why the overall idea of preparation is maybe no longer as important to all of us. If you are holding the third harvest, you are being guided to gather up your accomplishments and to celebrate your wins. Take a look at everything you've done and achieved. Make a store of these wins to come back to whenever you are feeling low or like you have failed. The easiest way to attract more abundance is to feel abundant. Having the stockpile of feel-good moments will kickstart you. It can help turn around feelings of lack or stagnation. Yeah, and I was like, oh, your sun card with our abundance. So that's sort of like, even though we're heading into winter, that actually, this is sometimes like the time where we have the most, right, in our pantry, or it's stored up. We have all that summer energy, all that sun energy sort of stored up um, to hold with us, like through the harder time, the cooler, darker time of winter.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
beautiful. What a great card.
Yeah. 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 Was there anything that came up for you when I was reading there?
Yeah, I was thinking about um yeah, and related to his son, this idea of kind of optimism and pride that we have what we need, right?
Mm,
And so it's basically, I think, the way I thought of the card you pulled is like the other side of the coin of the sun. Like the sun is kind of like the outwardly
yeah.
expression of that, and what you're bringing up is like we have it, we need to store it, we've been working for it, we have what we need, and it's not random, it's like it's a fruit of our labor. And so that infusing our optimism, that we don't get to be optimistic because we're wishfully thinking or in denial, but rather because we're more than ready to receive.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, yeah, and in a lot of ways, we've done the work actually. You did like the sort of some of the hard part might be over, and that there now we get to to maybe revel in it a bit. I know, right? And
Fingers
and
crossed.
prepare for next year's abundance, hopefully.
Correct.
As someone that's like a gardener, it always feels very literal to me. It was interesting in reading that. I was like, oh no, I still feel this way, even in modern world where I have my things from summer that I've stored up, or I still have tomatoes in my garage ripening, or things that are from the summer harvest that
Mhm.
I start to think about, oh yeah, okay, what's gonna last through the winter? What do I need to make more of next year or grow more of? Or the kind of that there's also this ever evolving experiment of figuring out like what do you need, right? We can prepare, we can plan, but that doesn't mean we always know what's going to come. And so there's
Right.
also that aspect of like adaptability, which we're great at as humans, even when we hate it.
That's right.
um, I always think about that when in my therapy clients of like, I'm like, oh, humans so good at change, and yet we like hate it. Most of us feel very challenged by, yeah, when things change. And great irony of humanity. Well, yeah. Well, thanks for doing that reading with me and coming on the podcast. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up if that sounds good.
Yeah, it was
Um,
great to be here. Thank you so much. Super fun
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, it was lovely. I love to talk about tarot, so thanks for joining me on that. Yeah, if you want to connect with Maritza further, you can go to the Bruja School website, maritza.a.schäfer on Instagram and Facebook. We have your Liberation Letters newsletter link as well. If anyone wants to be a guest on the show, I have my guest inquiry linked in the show notes, and I'll pull the links for the tarot decks we talk about. Those will always be in the show notes if folks want to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. And you can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.